Hello and welcome everybody to
Yes.
today's Next Level Love Story. We have a really cool guest today
Hmm.
who is going to share her next level love story. This, my friends, is Krista Marie, and she is the relationship chef. She is a cordon bleu Paris trained chef
That's amazing.
and a devoted partner and relationship mentor. And she combines these passions to offer clients a beautiful opportunity to renew, strengthen, and continue to enjoy their love connections. She understands that sometimes life gets in the way, right? And we don't make the time that we should for the ones that we love. We get that.
Hmm.
But no one ever regrets not working more. And so Krista believes and understands that love makes the world go around, and love loves giving committed couples curated date night adventures
Hmm.
so that she can support all of us in taking the time, making the time to do that connection,
Hmm.
come together through food and shared experiences. She leads the way. She will help you make a good night even better. And of course, like us
Hmm.
and probably all the people that that are in relationship mentorship roles, their our own personal story and Krista's personal story like supports and inspires how she got here. So Krista, thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here with us. We're so
Welcome.
excited to share your story and learn more about you and what you're doing in the world and what makes your love so special. So, why don't you start us off there? Tell us a little bit about your next level love story and what makes it a next level love for you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share, one of my passions, which is my relationship. And yeah, it's for me, it's a great love story. And I know every love story is different, and we all think our own love story is great. But
Yeah.
I'm
I
amazed.
was, I was married. I have three kids. It didn't work out with their dad, probably because we didn't make time for connection, make time for each other. But I was a single mom and I was working, multiple jobs. I didn't really have a reason not to work. So I just worked all the time, when the kids were either with their dad or at school or whatever.
Mhm.
And, but I knew I wanted more. I knew I was that person who laser focused on finding someone to share my life with.
Mhm.
There's so many people, you go in these dating apps or whatever, and it's like just want something casual, or
But that's
just
not
want
your jam.
friends. And that was not what I wanted. And
Mhm.
I put that in my dating profile. I am not looking for something casual. I'm looking for a long-term relationship and someone
Mhm.
to share my life with. And to take that one step further, I didn't just want a warm body to share my life with. I wanted somebody to fall in love with and to create a life together. And I met my partner, on Tinder, the way everybody meets, right?
That's
These
cool.
days, yep.
Hey.
Nowadays. And excuse me. So we met through Tinder and we chatted and we hit it off right away. And then we met in real life and spent 2.5 hours chat, and we knew a lot of the same people, which is kind of normal in our area. But even though we knew a lot of the same people, in a million years our paths probably would not have crossed. And we both sort of left that first coffee date thinking, interesting, this is definitely something that I would like to pursue.
Mhm.
And we were in the parking lot. I'll have to tell you this. This is kind of funny, and maybe I shouldn't tell you, but we were in the parking lot, and he was kind of like, "Well, are we still going to have a date on Saturday and go out for brunch?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely." And then I kissed him. I was that person, and it
This
was
is your first in-person date?
part of me.
This was your first in-person date?
First in-person date,
Mhm.
right? I'm that person. But
Love it.
anyways, and I guess he said he was just blown away, and he's like, whoa, he didn't know what to think of it. And I'm kind of that larger than life person anyways.
Mhm.
So, you know, so anyways, it went from there and we started dating, and we really got along like amazingly from the first day.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd been married and with his ex-wife for 30 years.
Wow.
And he really, they started dating when he was 18 and didn't really sow his wild oats all that much because his youth was, in this relationship. And so he was that guy who said, I don't want anyone who has kids. And I'm like, I've got 3. And he didn't want a serious relationship. And I'm like, that's all I want. And, we said in a conversation, I said, this is what you've said. And I said, nobody knows where anything's going to go. But I said, I just need to know that you are open to what might happen. Mm-hmm. And he said, I am. And so that was fine. And it snowballed from there. And so we spend all of our time together. We go on amazing trips together. He embraces my kids, as that guy who's never had kids before embraces somebody else's children. But, we have a great family relationship, and my kids consider him part of the family and they are part of his family. And we have made an incredible life together. We bought a little apartment in Italy together. We bought a little cottage property an hour and a half from where we are. I'm talking little, not huge investments, but we have done these things together, and we've created this life and this future, and we can't imagine life without each other anymore. It's just, it's amazing. There's no controversy. There's no conflict. It's just easy, happy days.
That sounds like the dream, right? I think that's what most people would say they would love to have, someone that they can have fun with, have adventures with, build a relationship and a life with, create dreams with, share family with, not have conflict, not, struggle.
And it sounds like it's kind of been that way from the start. Unless maybe I'm missing some of the
journey,
the journey, the altitude changes in your relationship, right? Like, did you have any of that? What did it take, I guess, for each of you to get there? Maybe it happened before y'all met and you came into it sounds like with this commitment to to have something better and different than you've ever had. But yeah, tell us more about what it took.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, bringing something different to the table, because once you get to be a little more mature, like we were, still are, I guess, you learn to pick and choose your battles, right?
Okay.
I mean, I learned with my ex-husband years ago, but in a more negative way, am I willing to make this into a huge issue? Do I want to fight about this? Is it really that important? And so with him, I sort of let him get away with everything because I didn't want to fight with him. And with Billy, it's different because I don't want to fight with him, not because I'm afraid of him or I, feel uncomfortable, but just because I love him and I want us to be happy and I don't want there to be conflicts. So I very much do ask myself, okay, how important is this to me? And if it's not important, I generally will let it go because, when you have an argument with someone, whether it's your kids or your parents or friends, boss, partner, whatever, you don't stay mad forever. So can you skip that middle part where you are angry and you aren't talking and just go from, yeah, we don't agree to it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so that's very much what I have done. And I suspect he does the same thing too. In terms of ups and downs, it wasn't difficult. We didn't argue. But when I first met him, of course, I have 3 kids, and it sounds like you guys have kids too.
We do, 4 of them.
Right. And so, whoa, that's a lot. But
we're also a blended family.
Yeah.
So makes a difference too. But it's, your kids are your life, right? You would do anything for your kids. And Billy, first of all, didn't have kids. And second of all, his parents were not really that way, that sacrifice everything for your kids or do whatever. So this was a completely foreign concept to him.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, there was a little bit of, well, he should do that himself, or she should do that himself, or why are you doing that? And me sort of saying, these are my kids. I gave birth to them. I made this commitment the day they were born that I'm going to take care of them and care for them and support and encourage them throughout their lives. And that doesn't end when they're 12, 15, 19, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a little bit difficult for him to sort of understand in the beginning, but he loved me and he saw what our relationship was. So it was worth it to him to understand this. And he's gotten better every year, and he gets closer to my kids every year. And it's just, you know, that sort of tension that we had in the beginning at times still comes up from time to time, but really not that much.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I mentioned this before. We were in Paris a couple weeks ago watching my daughter compete in the Olympics. And Billy's the one putting his glasses down so nobody can see him crying because he's so emotional.
Oh my God.
And what she's doing, right? And I'm just like, right? Like,
oh, it's amazing.
This is a family. And my ex-husband was there, and we all moved together as a family. We went to the venue together. We sat together. We talked together. We went out. And it was amazing. And we were just this family. And he is and was and will be such a big part of it that, you know, he belongs. He's part of us now.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
That's so great. I love that. And I want to like reflect on these 2 points that you brought up, Krista, because they really are so important. The first thing that you mentioned is like picking your battles. And there's a really big difference between picking your battle and like doing it from a place of love and sovereign choice. Like, you know what? It's not worth disrupting our happiness right now. It's not actually that important to me in the long run. And being able to choose that and let it go and reconnect to love with your partner, as opposed to like, you know, picking your battles is in, you know, well, I just don't want to make it hard. I don't want to get into a fight, or I'm afraid to upset my partner, or, you know, he's not going to care anyways, whatever that is. And then holding on to the resentment, holding on to the anger, holding on to the hurt, which I think can happen a lot. And it's this, you know, I think everybody's heard the idea of pick your battles. And yet I don't know that enough of us in relationships slow down and bring consciousness to whether or not whatever it is I'm feeling upset about is important enough to me to bring it up. Right? Like that. And that's a big piece of actually what we teach, right? Like conscious responding, not just reacting to how you feel, but slowing down enough to be able to think through, is this really going to make a difference? And sometimes it is. Sometimes it is really important and you need to bring it up and risk the difficult conversations. But a lot of the times it's not. And when you can get there, it just like eliminates so much conflict, so many processing conversations, so many bumps in the road. It really smooths things out just because you're choosing consciously.
Definitely.
That is so big. And I love that you got to a place in your life, and then probably that Billy did too, where y'all can do that and offer that gift of love to one another and really see that perspective, right? Like, it's like the don't sweat the small stuff perspective.
Exactly. And the follow up to that, which is hint, it's all small stuff, right?
Yes. Yep.
I think about that all the time. And, you know, it's funny. Every once in a while, we'll be talking about something. And there was something recently, something to do with the house, maybe the front lawn. And because we just did a ton of landscaping. And if that won't cause problems, nothing will. And we also renovated a kitchen together and didn't have words even once. And
I mean, a house project without words, like that is next level look.
but we were doing something, and I said, I think we should do this. And he said, well, I don't agree because for whatever reason. And at the time I made a mental note and I thought, okay, we're going to drop this for now, but this will need to be revisited at some point. And then the next thing I noticed, he was doing it the way I wanted him to do it.
Ha,
and it's like, maybe we don't have to talk about it, right?
and pause for just a moment.
Right. And I don't know what his inner dialogue was, but probably, similar to that. And,
Beautiful.
And that's just the way it goes. But I agree with what you're saying. I think a lot of times women especially are programmed to say you have to stand out for yourself. You can't let a man control you.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it goes a little too far. And I'm not suggesting anybody be subservient, but sometimes you don't need to be as strident or as willful without feeling subservient at the same time, right? It's compromise, and every relationship on the planet has to have compromise or it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I think that we can, as human beings, compromise without feeling like we're being taken advantage of or being controlled or put upon, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's why we like to talk about sovereignty so much, right? Like it's one thing when you're doing it because you don't feel like you have the power to do anything else, or because you need to feel like you need to assert power, and in order to be taken seriously or be honored or respected or whatever it is. It's another thing when you're like independently choosing based on your own values and sense of self and your integrity and your personal needs and your desires. What do I want to do
What
here?
do I want? That's
what do
really important.
I want to do here? How do I want to respond to this need within me? What would feel the best for me in alignment with who I want to be, how I want to love, what I want to create,
what I want to experience,
I want to experience in this relationship. And that's so different. Right?
Definitely.
Because you're choosing it and you're not just sucking it up and hiding it and suppressing it.
Right.
And you're not just like
going along to get along.
Right. And you're not also just kind of letting it all go.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think, as we're talking, I'm thinking about how it speaks to safety in a relationship and safety within yourself, being anchored within yourself to be able to make those choices and trust that your partner still loves you, that they still respect you, that if you choose to bring it up later, that they will listen to you. Right. Like, and what's interesting though, is that we found that, I don't know if you find this too, Krista, but that it's not just about feeling safe first to do that. It's about recognizing that when you do this, when you make these choices to pick your battle, you help create safety.
Definitely. And, it's exactly true. You nailed it. I used to, if my ex-husband and I would have an argument or something, it wouldn't be uncommon for me to come home from work and check his closet to see if all the stuff was still there.
Wow.
And it was this fear that if I speak my mind, if I stand up to him, that's going to be the end of it. And, the once a year that Billy and I may have an argument, and it's usually minor, that wouldn't even cross my mind. It's true. It's definitely safety, and it's self-sovereignty, right? I get to choose how I feel and how I react to things. Right. And that's the, don't sweat the small stuff thing coming into play.
For sure.
Yep. Well, I know I'm taking up a lot of space, but there was one other thing that I wanted to say, like circling back to what Krista was also talking about in terms of the co-parenting thing and the way that you and Billy had really, I'll say Billy didn't get where you were coming from in terms of how you were engaging in your role as a mom to your kids. And I just want to point out, that's such a beautiful illustration of how we can make space for our differences. Like he didn't understand, he maybe didn't agree with the way that you were parenting, but he recognized that this was important to you and these were your kids, and he supported you and tried to understand and allowed it. And I just wanted to name how beautiful that is too, because I think a lot of the times when we have differences, different ways of wanting to do things. Like even in your example of working on the kitchen, like he wanted to do it one way and he wanted to do it another. Was it the kitchen, right?
I think it was the kitchen. It was one of the things.
Yeah. But like it's being able to honor and allow those differences to exist, and then again slow down enough to bring consciousness to what you want to do about it. Like which person's preference gets priority when it comes to parenting. Like these are your kids, you grew them in your body, you've been raising them by yourself for years. Like obviously, or it seems obvious, even if he doesn't understand it or like it, it makes the most sense that the most loving thing for him to do is honor and learn how to parent the way that you want to parent your kids. And it's just really strikes me, especially as also a couple who's in a blended family, how in this area in particular, in the parenting realm, right? Differences in parenting, it can get so tricky. There can be so like such intense feelings about how we raise our kids. And yet when you center in love, like what's the loving thing to do? How do I support my partner? How do we be a team in this? What is our ultimate goal here? It just makes all the difference in the world. So I just wanted to pull that out because we haven't talked a lot about parenting yet in these series, and that's a
well, and I'm really grateful because I think this speaks to what an incredible human being Billy is. That when we had the odd sort of terse discussion about the kids, and I would tell him, this is how I feel. I want to do this for my kids. They need me in this way. And when you say you don't think that they need that or whatever the situation would be, I explained to him, I said, I feel like I'm caught between you and the kids.
Sure.
And, when I explained this to him, he said his reaction was not one of aggression or conflict. It was, I never want to make you feel that way. And I'm so sorry. That was not my intention. I support you in whatever you want to do. And they're absolutely your kids, but I love them as part of my family too. Right. So it's not just me biting my tongue or letting things slide. He does the same with me. He's absolutely committed in every way to me and my kids. So I think that's pretty amazing that he took all of us on. And I'm a handful. Like I'm a whirling dervish of a human being. And he just takes it all in stride and he's happy. So I am so grateful that I met such an amazing person.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful.
So cool. Also, congrats to your daughter. Like, what an amazing accomplishment. I'm not sure what event you participated in, but like, what an amazing experience for all of you and her especially.
It was pretty exciting. It was it had been a long time coming. It's funny, my dad, who passed away in 2016, decided when she was 10 that she was going to go to the Paris 2024 Olympics. And we're like, oh yeah, whatever, right? Okay. And so sad that he wasn't there to see it. But hopefully he, on some level he was there to see it. But and she's a flatwater sprint kayaker.
Oh, cool.
So cool.
And it was amazing. She was so happy. She was just beaming the whole time and relaxed and taking everything in. So yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience.
That's awesome.
So cool. Well, we already touched a little bit on like don't sweat the small stuff, but I'd love to hear, what other advice or words of wisdom you might have for folks out there wanting to experience the next level love.
Am I allowed to say it even if it's not a popular opinion?
Totally. Yes, please.
We love those.
Okay. I think the key, in my opinion and my experience, to keeping a relationship strong and healthy and happy is to be engaged with each other and do things together. And I see a lot of people who go and, he goes on his football buddy vacations and she goes on her girls trip down south And people forge very separate lives while being together. And you also see people, and this is similar, and I'll circle back to why I think it's similar, but you see people who spent all of their time hanging out with a big group of friends and, partying at one person's house one weekend and then the next one the next weekend. And whether you're hanging out in big groups or you're doing your separate vacations, you're not taking the time to connect with each other. And I think that is so important. And connection isn't, deciding who's going to do the chores and who's going to drive the kids to school or who's going to do the laundry, or it's not waking up in bed in the morning and saying, hey, hope you have a great day. Those are not connection. Connection is adult time where you're interacting in a fun way that leads to conversation and hopefully more, but it's connecting as adults in your relationship and not just sort of reporting the news type of thing, right? It's not when your partner comes home, hey, how was your day? It can be better than that. How was your day? That jerk that you were dealing with in the office, was he okay today? Or did you get that project done that you've been working on? It's taking more of an interest and connecting with your partner on a deeper level than just the superficial surface layer stuff that doesn't lead anywhere.
Right.
I think that's hugely important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And we hear a lot of course, we have our ideas about this, but we hear a lot of people talk about how in their adult lives, both people working full-time jobs or in professional careers, running businesses, maybe also being parents, having kids, right? Like there's this struggle that to find the time, right? Like that, it's hard to connect. We feel like we're ships passing in the night. We just don't have much time together. They might miss each other, but it feels like they just can't even figure out how to connect, when to connect, where in this really busy life that they have, are they supposed to find space to connect when there's so much of their time is taken up by work and then the rest by kids, and then they're exhausted. What advice do you have for that, for how couples can connect deeply, meaningfully, and more frequently?
I think that the very, very, very first step you have to do is make it a priority, because we all have time. We all waste time scrolling on social media, right? When you come home, ditch the phone and pay attention to your partner is the first step. But we can all find time to watch our favorite TV show, right? Or to, like I said, scroll on social media, or go to the gym. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the gym, because going to the gym is really important. But we all find time to do these things to serve ourselves, and taking care of ourselves is really important. But connecting with our partner is also taking care of ourselves. It's maintaining a relationship that's so incredibly important for us. And I remember when my kids were young, my ex was the same way. Well, we're not getting a babysitter, we're spending time with the kids. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? The kids are going to be healthier and happier if mom and dad are healthy and happy and fulfilled, right?
100%,
and people need to remember that, especially people who have kids who are on that, will make time for each other when the kids are older. The kids will respond and be so much happier when mom and dad are happier and in love. And even more importantly, that I've always been a huge proponent for, which is why I sort of didn't have trouble breaking up with my husband, because it wasn't a good relationship. I don't want my kids to grow up thinking that's what a relationship looks like. I want my kids to grow up seeing two adults in love who make time for each other, who share things and do things and have adventures, because that's what I want my kids to have when they are in relationships.
Yes.
I want them to settle for nothing less than love.
Yes.
And my mom told me two really important pieces of information growing up that have stuck with me all my life. The first one was, never settle for a man who doesn't put you on a pedestal, which sounds crazy, but so important. You want your partner to adore you, to,
I love that word.
think you're amazing. And the other one was, never marry a man thinking he's going to change, or a person thinking he's going to change, because he won't. So, I have told my kids this all their lives growing up. If you meet a young man or a young woman, I have a son as well, and they don't seem to be really the right fit for you, don't waste the time hoping they're going to change and you're going to grow to like them. Make sure from the beginning that you have somebody who you get along with, who you're happy with, and then make sure you grow and make that relationship, that commitment and connection continue.
Yeah. I appreciate that you mentioned the growth piece, because I think that that's also like really key. Like when I think about what it is, like if there's one thing, one quality that suggests to me that a relationship has a chance to make it, right? No matter how hard it might be in the beginning. That one quality is that both partners are willing to grow and learn and level up, right? That they're willing to change. So like yes, you're right. You can't make someone else be someone they don't want to be, or someone that they're not.
It will work in opposite.
Right.
If you try.
Yeah. They'll dig their heels in.
They will resist the change if you're trying to force it upon them.
But if you find a partner who like maybe isn't 100% everything right in the moment, certainly when we started, we weren't. Ours, unlike your and Billy relationship, ours did not start really good. Ours started really bad. But we knew that like we wanted to make this work, and we were both committed to that personal growth journey. And that there's that piece of the growing together, because life is going to change you.
Yeah, you're going to change. We
all change to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And a relationship is a living, breathing thing, right?
100%.
You have to feed and nurture plants or a cat or whatever, right? Relationships need to be fed and nurtured so that they can grow too. Because you think about it, where you guys are with your kids, who I assume are youngish, because you guys are young, but eventually your kids are going to be grown up and moved out. How different will your relationship be then? It'll be totally different. But if you haven't taken the time to nurture it and grow it over time, then there won't be anything there for the years, when you shift into that different mode. So it's so important to nurture and grow your relationship, just like you would any other living thing.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. Which brings me to, a really important question that we like to ask people who are already experiencing a next level of relationship. What is your next level beyond this? Because again, like we're always growing, and we want those who are listening to understand that we who are experiencing these beautiful, wonderful, like very low conflict, easy, friend-based, delightful relationships, like there's still a next level. There's still more we want to create, more we want to do, more we want to be. It doesn't ever end. And so we'd love to know what's the next level for you and Billy?
Well, I mean, on a superficial level, the next level for us is to move to France and make a life there.
Ooh,
and
love it.
That's our dream, sort of a retirement dream, but I won't retire because I work virtually, so it's easy. I'll just keep going. But it's that next level when everything sort of becomes about you and your partner, and sort of the other things fall away, which is the job and the kids. And the kids are always important, right? But hopefully by the time your kids are up and out and married and have their own families, they don't quite need you as much. And it's almost like a renewed relationship when everything else falls away and there aren't all those external stress factors. And then you can, then I think that's the premium time to start adventuring and doing all sorts of new things. I have an aunt who's 72, and one year, she and her husband went to Portugal for a month, and this was just relatively recently. Another year, they actually went to Quebec City, which is not exactly northern Canada, but pretty north.
Yeah,
and they spent a whole winter skiing and trudging through the snow to stores, and and they're having these fantastic adventures that they couldn't do when they had jobs and kids and everything around them, right?
Yeah.
And they're our inspiration. When Billy first met them, he said, geez, I really sort of thought that, I'd be meeting your aunt and she'd be an old lady, and she's not. And she really isn't. And they are go, 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 go. And between her and her husband, they're a blended family. I think there's 6 kids.
Wow.
And multiple grandkids, but they just go. They are enjoying life to the absolute fullest. And they're on new adventures that they couldn't have had when they had kids and work and all that type of thing. So that's the next level, is being, the carefree adventurers, I guess.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's an amazing chapter.
I am excited to get to that chapter in our life.
Living vicariously through you.
We know that someday it'll be there. We'll try to do our best.
We get tastes of it.
Yeah. We try to prioritize adventuring now, but it's a whole nother level of who you get to be together
as an adult human.
Yes. When you've like shed a little bit or released yourself a little bit from the roles of work and parenting. So super excited for you two and the life that you're going to create in France.
I have one more question, which, sorry.
No, I just said we're very excited. Thank you.
I bet.
I'm excited too. I follow it. I had a question because I'd love to hear kind of how your story tied into the work that you do in the world.
Yes, that's where I wanted to go too. So I'm glad you're asking.
Yeah. Could you just tell the story about how you arrived at what you're doing?
Yeah. And a little bit about what you're doing.
That too,
it's so
please.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I had, I guess I have 3 passions in life. One is love and relationships, obviously. Food is the second passion. And the third passion is travel. And when I met Billy, well, back the bus up a little bit, I went to school in Paris. I went to Le Cordon Bleu in Paris, and I am a trained chef. I graduated first in my class. And it's something I've always just been passionate about since I was, little. I had my first dinner party for my mom's birthday when I was 13. Wow. So it's always been a part of my life. Not surprisingly, my ex-husband was not an adventurous eater. And,
really hard.
Yeah, it was difficult. And he learned to like things but that was a source of stress a lot of the time too. But, anyways, I got out of cooking in a kitchen behind a stove when I started having kids, because I couldn't imagine being pregnant, standing in front of a stove and doing all this stuff. Yes. And eventually I went to work for an airline, because the third option is traveling. And I loved that job. I was working in the operations center, and it was a 24-hour operation, and it was dynamic and totally unorthodox and rowdy and fun. And, my favorite part, I think, was the fact that they never turned on the overhead fluorescent lights, and it was always mood lighting at work. It was great. But COVID came, and you can imagine working for an airline where that went. It went right into my living room, and let's paint the ceiling. And, and then when I went back to when things came back after COVID, and the world was getting up and going again, and I was offered my job back, it broke my heart to think about going back to shift work, because a little part of me died every Saturday morning when I left at 5:30 and Billy was off for the weekend, because he's a project manager for a construction company. And I couldn't bear the thought of doing that, of leaving him on the weekends or being at work overnight doing the night shifts or whatever. And plus I was a little too old for it. And so I started taking courses and working in the relationship coaching area and getting accreditation for that and starting an online business. And I really loved it. I started out helping women over 40 who were, looking to find love, but were a little bit discouraged like I was, and, really helping them. And I enjoyed it, but it just wasn't lighting me up the way I had sort of hoped it would. And I have a really amazing business coach, and she said, you're missing something. I said, well, I know, I feel like that. And she said, what you're missing is the food. And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, you've got to find a way to bring that in. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, right?
Smart coach.
And so, right. And so that's where, I thought about it and I thought, how can I make these two things come together? And that's sort of when the Relationship Chef was born. And I thought, you know what? I want to help couples connect the way Billy and I do. And I very much believe in food as a love language. And I thought, you know what? This is a perfect way to bring people together. And my experience with cooking in the kitchen was I didn't like other people in the kitchen with me. And that started with my kids. I was not a great mom when it came to that. My kids can all cook and I taught them to cook, but it wasn't easy for me to, it wasn't always like, come on, let's make cookies together. Cause it's like, you put that in at the wrong time. And so I didn't play well in the kitchen. And when Billy came along, our joke is, I'll say to him, I've heard you can cook, because I think he is. I know he is. He can cook, and he's a little bit creative in the kitchen. But of course, when I came along, nobody wants to cook for me. I'm a chef. Nobody wants to cook because apparently I'm intimidating, but I really don't think I am. But he started coming into the kitchen to help me. And it was so much fun. And I'm like, wow, this is neat. I should have been doing this all the time, because he's just happy to have me in there. And I give him all the crappy tasks like peeling the potatoes. But he's just happy to be in the kitchen with me. And so all of these experiences came together to create this idea for helping couples connect and find that really deeper love through the love language of food, right? So you've got everything. You've got the taking the time to have a date night. You can do it in the privacy of your own home. You don't have to go out, and you work together as a team. And that's why big companies have team building exercises, right? Because the more you work together, the better you are together. And it's the same with a relationship. So when you're in the kitchen and you're working as a team, even if you're not used to having people in the kitchen, you don't like having someone in the kitchen, you're learning to have this person who you love in the kitchen with you and find ways to make it work and connect and have a great time doing it. And then at the end of the night, you've got this meal that you've created that you share, and you sit back and you laugh about what went wrong or celebrate, with a high five of how well it turned out. And it just makes a fun and very much connected evening.
That's amazing. So in your work, you walk couples through cooking a meal together.
Exactly. And of course, teaching some skills and sort of broadening their repertoire of recipes. And
Cool.
the recipes that I pick, the things that I teach, I very much do it with the intention that it is something that anybody can replicate. And of course, if you've never cooked a day in your life, then the results might not be perfect the first time. But, you see people and they create these dishes. There's this guy on Instagram who's amazing. Like, he creates this beautiful stuff. I would have trouble recreating it. And I have game in the kitchen. And so a lot of these recipes are not things that you can necessarily recreate. And that's going to lead to frustration if it's something that's unattainable, right?
Sure.
Make a misstep along the way, that's not a big deal. But if it's something that no matter how hard you try, you're never going to be able to make the dish that this person made, then that's not conducive to the real connecting situation.
Stress takes away from connection.
Exactly. So I try to create meals that I know can be recreated, but are also going to teach you a few things along the way, you know, that you can add to your repertoire. And hopefully I encourage people to be intuitive with their cooking. So, learn what I'm teaching you in the class, but then take that and say, you know what, I could do this with it and it would be really good as well. So it's sort of a long-term thing with every class. There's more to it than just the specific recipe that we're creating.
Yeah.
I love it.
What a brilliant idea, and such a great way to bring your talents together, Krista.
Thank you.
And support and serve couples in,
who can't use more help in the kitchen?
Right.
I mean,
and it's much less intimidating to imagine cooking a meal when a chef who's walking you through this and who also understands relationship dynamics. I mean,
so cool.
Best of all the world.
Exactly. So, and at the end of days, you don't look back and say, geez, I wish I'd taken one more meeting, or I wish I'd gone to the gym one more time. You say, I wish I'd had more time with my partner. I wish we had made more time for date nights, right? It's all about love.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. It's a great way to kind of like wrap this up. It's all about love.
Yeah.
You're at the end of the day, it's the connection, the time, the relationship, the love that you share that's going to matter the most.
Definitely.
Beautiful.
So how can folks find you?
Yeah, I mean, if they want to do these date nights with you and learn how to cook a meal, if they want to, learn more about what you're doing and how to work with you.
Reaching out on social media is always great. On Instagram, I'm just the _relationship chef. In Facebook, it's actually just my name, Krista Melanson. You can see my profile, and I always suggest people go and look there because you can see a little bit about who I am and the kids and Billy, and it's not just buy this now, I have this, look at me.
Right.
There should be a little more of that. I've been told I don't do that enough, but if you look at my Facebook profile, then you do see a little bit about who I am and sort of get the essence of what's important to me and decide whether or not I'm somebody you'd like to talk to about, taking a cooking class or bringing your partner to do this connecting on a different level. So that's always, I always say the best ways to reach me is by doing that.
Facebook and Instagram. Awesome. We will make sure that those links get into the comments so that it's really easy for anyone watching to find you, Krista.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to share your story and your wisdom, for reminding and inspiring all of us to take more time to connect with one another.
And with our food.
And with our food.
A lot of our food ends up, our cooking is like reheating.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
making some choices.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. What a wonderful premise for a show. I just think it's amazing. I'm 100% with you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, we are having so much fun. There's so much beautiful wisdom in the folks who are out here like doing the thing.
Yeah.
So we're really glad that we connected with you and got to share you with our audience.
Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed meeting both of you. You guys seem like you have an amazing relationship and your priorities are in the right place.